Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this video is titled Flying the Great Lakes Biplane. Now, if you can fly into Greencastle, Iowa, which is northwest of Iowa City and west of Cedar Rapids, if you can fly into this airport, you can fly into anything. Now, don't even mind the trees off the end of the runway, if you got the winds not from the right direction, but this thing is narrow. Now, they listed the runway as 60 feet wide. Yeah, that's right. No, that's not 60 feet wide. I think they're counting all the grass and stuff, because that, my gear barely fit on this thing. And they actually do flight training out of that. This airport used to be owned by Don Nelson, and if you ever got a speeding ticket in Iowa from the Bear in the Air, at least in southeast Iowa, Nelson was probably your guy that spotted you down there, because he flew a lot in, they had a J3 at first with the radios and stuff talking to the guys on the ground. Later, they had a 172, but he retired to this airport. He passed away a short while ago, and the flying club took this airport over, and they had a little fly-in, and that's where I flew in. I'd flown in this airport many years before in other aircraft like a J3. I didn't ever fly my 310 in there. I wouldn't take my 310 in. The nice thing about this runway and my Great Lakes is the fact that you can put a my airplane on this runway, and it does quite well. The amount of runway I take up, if you watch my 310 videos, the amount of runway I use in taking off and landing, of course, is a lot more than this little strip here out in the middle of cornfields and out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, it was a beautiful day to fly. I'd flown from Lake in the Hills. This is not really a cross-country airplane because it was, almost, I think, 2 hours or so by the time I got there. Of course, I took a little sightseeing detours, because that's the nice thing about an airplane like this is you can enjoy viewing the countryside at a low altitude. In fact, my wife wouldn't look outside when we're flying the 310 virtually at all, and I'd fly higher, of course, to get the better cruise performance. But in this, we fly low, and she actually likes to look out and enjoy the view. And so this was a nice little outing at Iowa, taxiing up to the area here. And I got the award for coming from the farthest distance. They actually said I'd win a few other awards, but they wanted to be gracious and hand them out to a few other people. Now here's back on a grass strip at Dacey. This is near my hometown of Lake in the Hills. I'm from Crystal Lake now. My hometown was Iowa City, but I'm from Crystal Lake. And this is the historic Dacey Airport with a lot of biplanes up there and things like that. So it's a lot of fun to fly into. And because it's a grass strip, you don't get a whole lot of students up there. You get a lot at Lake in the Hills with the nice cement runway, but you go to a grass strip and you get rid of that. So I can fly nice, reasonably tight patterns, because the thing about a biplane is, they talk about, hey, if you got a high wing aircraft, you can't see aircraft above you, and if you got a low wing aircraft, you can't see aircraft below you. Well, in a biplane, you can't see them above or below you with that wing in the way. It doesn't look quite as bad from this view farther back, but where you set up front, you can't see as well. And here's coming into the grass strip. That's runway 18 in the grass here. There's a threshold. And grass is nice and forgiving, especially for people who are learning to fly a tailwheel aircraft. And of course, I never got my tailwheel endorsement. I don't have a tailwheel endorsement because back in the olden days, you didn't need one. If you were checked off to fly a tail dragger aircraft, you were checked off fly a tail dragger aircraft. And there you want to get airborne, of course, before you get to the corn cobs, because that could be very uncomfortable. But in this aircraft, it's not a problem at all. It doesn't chew up much runway at all. Although being certified in 1929, there is very little data on this aircraft as far as performance in that. I had to kind of dig it up. Now here is more fun open cockpit biplane flying, because you notice that white stuff on the water down there. Well, first of all, I'm not big for over water biplane flying, but we've got a couple of reservoirs well, they were sand pits there that were mined, and then of course the water comes in and fills up the hole, and they turn them into recreational areas. So I'm coming in here to land at Lake in the Hills. Now my wife is holding on very tightly to the tail wheel here. You can't see the runway very well because the pitch attitude, and this was kind of a fortunate time because the students weren't up flying. I guess I get little breaks in the surge there. They kind of all go off together to fly, and then they come back, and if you catch it just right, you can have the pattern to yourself, and there's going to be the runway here somewhere. There it is. There it is. There you can see it. All right, touching down. Oh, and the funny thing is the guy who delivered my biplane to me, my Great Lakes, complained about how narrow this runway was. And I said, you know, I've been flying off this runway for a long time, and I've been flying in my 310 off of this thing. If you think it's narrow for a biplane, I mean, I never quite thought it was narrow. It was just what I was used to operating out of. And I think this one is, I think it's 50 feet or so they listed at. I'd have to look it up, I forget. It's wide enough that it's not an issue. They did an upgrade to the runway. Unfortunately, they raised the elevation of the runway 3 inches, and they forgot to tell the FAA about that. So the FAA canned all the approaches. You can do them practice, of course, but you can't do them in actual IFR because the runway is 3 inches higher and it's unsafe now. They have to reevaluate everything. And of course, there's been a few cases where a little gotcha got them. So, they're trying to be extra careful, and they have to go through the whole process. But for 3 inches for over a year, we're shut down at my home airport of doing any doing any IFR approaches. So we had one guy who took off in his airplane and flew all over the states and says he comes back here and he can't get an IFR clearance into Lake in the Hills. So enough of this cold weather flying, and actually the heater works quite well. My left knee gets very warm. That's where the little vent is on the Great Lakes in the back. So that knee gets warm. So enough. I'm doing a few patterns here. This one isn't a full stop, but it's enough. It's enough flying for now. And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed a couple of these different views here on the Great Lakes. And thanks for watching. Appreciate it.